Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dil Ki Baatein. Today we have a very special guest, and today we have a very special guest, and today is special because we have one of our first guests in my podcast, my friend Bob. So, Bob, thank you for joining us today. Bob is a realtor. He's a successful real estate agent. He's a family man and he loves to cook, and he's also enjoying a religious talk. So let's dive into the podcast and steal the knowledge heard from the Bob. So, hi Bob, how are you doing today?
Good, Hamad. Very, very honored to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure to. So, Bob, can you tell us a little bit about yourself to our viewers who don't know you? Uh, so maybe he can understand you better.
Yes. Well, I live in Fairfax, Virginia, which is, just outside of Washington, D.C. So I'm near the political center of our country, Washington, D.C. And I've lived here for more than 30 years. And I'm married to I myself am half Japanese. My mother, my father met my mother after World War II and brought her back here to the U.S. And I have five brothers and one sister. And I'm currently married to my wife who is Korean. So that's very interesting. Me coming from a Japanese background, but marrying a Korean woman. And I have two children, a 34-year-old daughter who has a 2-year-old my 3-year-old, I'm sorry, grandson. His birthday was yesterday, and and a 31-year-old son. So I feel very blessed here, living here in the U.S. And yes, I'm a real estate agent, and I enjoy cooking and also enjoys um, engaging my Muslim friends in religious dialogue.
That's very interesting. That's
Yes.
very interesting. So, and I have done some research on you, and you also told me you have started your career as a landscape architect, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I,
So,
I didn't realize
yeah.
you knew about that.
So, what made you shift into real estate?
Well, after working 25 years as a landscape architect, and what I was doing is I was working for civil engineering firms, and civil engineering firms also have a planning department. And I was in the planning department as a landscape architect. And essentially, what we were doing was we were helping developers rezone their properties and get, to be able to build more on their land. And so but after doing that for 25 years, I was very tired of someone telling me I had to be in a certain place at a certain time, and you had to be there by 8 a.m. and work until 5 p.m. And so I just got a little bit weary of it and decided I wanted to do something that I could schedule my own time. And that's what real estate affords me to do is I can block my schedule if I don't want to take appointments or open my schedule up. And I have my mornings. I don't have to be, no one's telling me I have to be somewhere, so I can relax, have a nice cup of coffee, breakfast with my wife. And it just really changes stuff when you have a little more freedom.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So, was it difficult to move from a stable career to a real estate is a total? Told me it's based on commission.
Yes.
Was it was was it difficult for you to move from a stable career to a real estate?
Extremely difficult, yes, because of that. because of that fact, like when you work most of your life with a regular paycheck and then you're being told you don't get paid unless you make a sale. And because I didn't have a sales background, it was very hard for me. Yes.
And what was the first year? Like, what challenges you faced on your first year?
Uh, the big challenges were, when you're on your own and everything is dependent on you, the difficulty is lead generation. And Hamad, you might understand some of this because I understand you're in a related industry in our profession, and and part of that is lead generation and not only setting appointments with potential buyers or sellers, but then converting them. It's one thing to go on an appointment with someone, it's another thing to convince them to work with you. And that's all based on trust. But they just, when you're meeting someone for the first time, how do you establish trust and confidence, give them the confidence that you're the right person to work with? So that was the huge challenge because I had never had to do that before, and it was very, very challenging. Yes.
That's pretty good. So I saw some your reviews on Zillow, like especially someone says like you go above and beyond, like especially for the first home buyers. So what is the most important thing a real estate agent should do for new buyers?
That's a great question. I would say is to educate them about the process, what to expect. And because when you educate people, it empowers them to make the best decisions. And that's what they really need. And buying a house or selling a house isn't something people do very often. It's something you do once in many years. And so what they need is a someone to come alongside them and guide them to understand what to expect, and to go through with them, all the financial things that they have to understand about buying a property.
Amazing. Amazing. So as you know, Bob, I'm also just starting as US real estate as a one seller. So like
Yes.
what advice would you give me or anyone new in this industry? Like when I call calling, I say, hi, I don't use my own name because, we have to use a solo name to get trust to the another person. So, when I say, hi, this is Robin, people hang up on me. Why? What advice would you give me who is just starting? Have you done cold calling?
Well, I'm on a team, and so what my team handles what you do, setting the appointments for us. And so I never thought I wanted to be on a team. Um, but what I found out is for my personality, like people have, if a person has a personality where they want to be in control and start their own business and do everything, uh, that's that's good. They can work on their own as an agent. But what I found out is my personality. I do much more when I collaborate with people and let them take care of some of the responsibilities. So I'm not doing everything. So what our team does is we have a group of appointment setters, and what we call them is inside sales agents. They sit in the office all day on the phone, 8 to 12 hours a day. And I'm an outside sales agent. I go out to meet the clients and interact with the clients. So I believe the thing is when, from an appointment setting standpoint, um, you have to be able to say something that captures the person's perhaps interest, something like, if you ever heard that saying, like a radio station, they WIIFM. what's in it for me.
Yeah,
That's what it's yeah. So you have to say something initially to captivate their attention, to want them to allow you to say the next thing. And then hopefully through talking with them and, you know, ultimately gaining their trust to be able to set up it's a hard job. I couldn't do what you do, Hamad. I'm serious. I just couldn't do it. And then but what's funny is there's people in our office at the inside sales agent, they say they couldn't do what we do to go out and meet with the client. So I guess it's based on, your personality and so forth.
exactly, exactly. I'm like an introvert guy, so I stick with the phone.
You what?
I'm an introvert guy, so I
Oh,
don't do what you can do. Exactly. It's
yeah.
same like what you told me. It's based on the personality. Uh, and I also use pattern interrupt techniques. Like I'm not. I heard Grant Cardone.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, he's a real estate guy. So I use his techniques. He used he ordered us to use pattern interrupt techniques. You don't have to tell uh, anything that's every person is saying. You have to use unique things on the phones to get
Mhm.
an attention of the seller.
That makes a lot of
So
sense.
yeah,
Yep, yep,
have
yeah.
a daughter, you have a son, a great son, grandson. So, how has being a grandfather changed your perspective on life?
Well, one thing is my children, I adopted them. They were my they were my wife's children's from her first marriage. And then I had met my wife when she was a teenager. We both went our separate ways, and then many years later, we met each other again, and at that time, she was a single mom with 2 children, and so I adopted my children, and so my son, I first met him when he was probably 2 years old, but then again, just met him, but did not adopt him until, like, maybe he was 7 or 8 years old. So I never really and I didn't have children of my own, and so what my grandson seems to be showing me is how I would have related to my my adopted son had I been involved in his life when he was 2 and 3 years old. So it's been a real blessing. Um, that to understand that and my adopted son, unfortunately, his real father was absent from his life most of his life. So he didn't have a father to really father him until, I adopted him when he was 7 or 8 years old. So God is showing me through my grandson how I would have probably related to him had I been involved in his life when he was 2 years old.
Amazing. You are blessed with so many things. So, and what is the most important things you would teach to your grandsons that you want to learn from?
Well,
What is the one thing?
the one thing that and I hope this is relevant to Muslims too, and I'm sure that it is that the most important thing to me is that he becomes a servant of the living God, so that he embraces and he understands who God is, and he has a desire in his heart to learn how to serve that God. And I would say that's probably true for Muslims too, that they would probably want that of their children. I'm sure your parents wanted that of you, Hamad.
So, uh, amazing, man. Work is just amazing. Uh, And Bob, you also told me like you enjoy cooking and grilling. Like, what's your favorite dish to cook for your family?
That's an interesting question. One of the things I have a fascination with is like smoking and curing meats. So, do you know what pastrami is? No, okay. Well, pastrami is it's a large piece of beef. It's from the I forget the name of the muscle now. A brisket. It's a brisket from a cow. And what you do is you cure it, meaning you mix salt, sugar, water, spices, and you create a brine, a salt based, water or brine, and you soak this large piece of meat in the brine for 7 days, and that cures it. It seasons it and cures it, and then you coat it in crushed black pepper and coriander, and you smoke it until it becomes tender, and it makes this very very flavorful meat that you slice then and create sandwiches with. And so I like doing stuff like that. That's what my fascination is curing meats, smoking meats. Even like if I make chicken or salmon, a lot of times I like to smoke it on my grill rather than just cooking it. But, I would say
Right.
that's what I have a fascination with and what I enjoy doing, but I still enjoy cooking, many dishes. I like Thai cuisine. I like it's like very spicy and flavorful. And so I enjoy making the Thai marinades and cooking chicken or shrimp in it, something like that.
Yeah, roasting. I love cooking as well too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And yeah. So, like, do you see cooking as a relaxing, creative, or more about family bonding?
Do I see it as what?
As in, do you see cooking as a relaxing, creative, or as a family bonding?
Wow, that's a great question, Ahmad. I think I really see it as all of those things. But the funny thing is, as much as I love cooking, I would hate to do it for a business, where you're just forced to produce, produce, produce. Um, but I do find it relaxing. And as you start, and my personality is, I first want to cook it according to the recipe, and then I want to then tweak it or manipulate it to like the way I think it might be better. And then absolutely it is eating is such a huge bond with family. And I think it's one of the blessed things that God provides us. And I know that your faith is steeped in tradition of having meals like Ramadan, breaking the fast, and so forth. So I know that your culture is very much steeped in bonding through meals, and it's in our scriptures too. It's in the Bible, and in fact, one of the things is that Jesus says that you know after the day of judgment, there will be a great feast. People will come from the east and the west. And I guess we will sit down with the prophets of God and have a great feast. So even Jesus, and then Jesus, you know, I know Islam does in general may not believe that Jesus died, but one of the things that our scriptures say is that he had a meal with his followers before he was going to suffer punishment, and and he made some he related that supper with his followers is as a new covenant from God, and he related it to the some of the elements in the meal. So it's a fascinating thing. So yes, food is a very very strong bonding element among all people. It's something that can even bring different cultures together, right? So that's a nice way to think about it too.
Wonderful. I love your knowledge about religious things. So tell me about your pet Benny.
About what?
About Benny, your pet.
Benny? Beanie?
Yeah, Beanie.
The dog?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Beanie. Yeah, he's my pug. He's my I love him. I've had him. We got him when he was 3 months old. Um, my family was having a big Thanksgiving celebration, and my daughter always wanted to have a pug, and so my younger brother, when I was at this Thanksgiving celebration with my family, he just says, "Okay, we're gonna go to a farm here in Pennsylvania and look at pugs." And I said, "What are you talking about?" Well, he goes, "Your daughter wants a pug, right? Well, we're gonna go look at him." I said, "Wait a minute, wait a minute. I have to have permission from my wife and, everything like that." I told my younger brother. And so, but she gave us permission, and then we drove out to this farm, and this farm had raised a litter of pugs to sell, and we picked up the dog, and he spent that first Thanksgiving with us. That was 13 years ago, and I've had him ever since. Yeah. So he's dogs, and what's beautiful about dogs is um, they they love you. They don't hold grudges. They can be sitting, like, I leave my dog all day long, and when I come home, he doesn't complain to me. He's just happy to see me. And so I think, to me, what I believe is, like all creation, they reflect characteristics of the creator. And I would say dogs definitely do that. Unconditional love. I think that's a reflection of the creator as well. And I'm always shocked and amazed when I look at my dog and thinking, wow, you're a reflection of the creator of the universe. And so I think it's very beautiful.
Amazing, amazing. So, and you also, Bob, you are half Japanese, you are half American, your wife is Korean. So, how the diverse background changed the way, the outlook of your life and work?
How does it how does it what change?
Like, how has the diverse background influenced your outlook on life and work?
Well, you know, I have, like I told you before, I have five
Yeah.
brothers, and I was the only one fortunate enough to marry. Even though we're all half Japanese, I was the only one of my brothers that married an Asian woman. All my other brothers married American wives. And so I had the blessing of receiving all this Korean culture and cooking. The Koreans make some amazing, amazing food, and my wife is an excellent cook, and I just feel so blessed. And I think my brothers are a little bit envious, knowing that I'm getting, all of this Korean cooking, and so now one thing interesting about the Korean and Japanese cultures is th- is that the Japanese invaded the Korean a long time ago, and they, did some very, very evil stuff to the Koreans. Very, very bad stuff. And so and in the Korean culture, the the Japanese never apologized for how they treated the Koreans. This was a long time in their history. So there's this sort of joke between me and my wife about, she's saying, "I never apologized." because the Japanese never apologized to the Koreans. And so it's a humorous thing between us. So if she ever gets upset with me, she said, "You never apologized." And so it's become sort of like a joke. But I love the Korean culture. And here in this area, in the Washington, D.C. area, what's interesting is virtually every Japanese restaurant is run by Koreans. And so probably the American public probably thinks it's Japanese running these Japanese restaurants, but almost 99% of them are actually owned and run by Koreans. And so I always accuse my wife that you took over our business, you took over our restaurants. And so, yeah, we joke about it. So, but I feel like it's really enriched my life and blessed me to be part of their culture and to experience their food firsthand.
Amazing. And also, Bob, that's very interesting. I love that. So you also said you enjoy a spiritual conversation.
Yeah.
So how does your faith guide your work and personal life? And how do you balance between professional career and with your spiritual life?
That's a great question too, Hamad. Well, I try to I try to bring my faith into wherever I am and wherever I go, because I realize, what's interesting about religion is that it's kind of like politics. Everyone has their own point of view. Everyone knows what they think that the truth is. And everyone ultimately has to choose for themselves, what they believe. But the difficulty in it, I think, is we all want to desire to worship, the Creator, and believe that we're worshiping him in the correct way. But what's fascinating, at least from our scriptures, the Bible, the most difficult people that Jesus had trouble with were the religious people. So I mean, think about that. These people, you wouldn't call them bad guys. They were the people trying to honor their lives with their understanding of who God was. But yet they're offended by this person named Jesus. And Jesus, he says this fascinating thing to them. He says, and this is to, again, the religious leaders, but the people who supposedly had the best understanding of who God was. He said to them, like, you you greet one another in public and you accept one another, as like as friends would do, right? So if you see your friend in the street, you say, "Hi, how you doing, Hamad? Nice to see you." And so Jesus asks them, like, he goes, "How can you worship God correctly if you accept honor between each other? You greet each other and accept each other for who they are, yet you reject me, the very one sent by God." And he's asking the people, do you understand what you're doing? You're accepting glory and honor from one another, but you're rejecting the glory and honor from the true living God. And he's trying to shake their complacency of what they think and what they believe about God. And I think perhaps we all need to have that done in our hearts and minds. Like, can we look outside of everything that we think is true or that we have been taught about God and see something different or new? And it's like the verse I said it was the script that Jesus had. But again, this is really fascinating too, Hamad, is Jesus is talking about an idea that transcends religious belief. So what do I mean by that? How can an idea transcend religious belief? And what I mean by it is this. When he says this statement that I'm going to share with you again, he's saying no. He says no man, and when he says no man, he's including all of us. So Jesus is essentially saying it's not about religion. Hamad, you're a man. Bob, you're a man. And Jesus is saying no man. No man can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born again. So there, he's taking away the religious argument. And I would even say this, even the religion of Christianity. Jesus is not talking about the religion of Christianity. I would say, I would define religion as man's systemization of what he believes to be the truth of God. But it might necessarily not be the truth of God. Because here, Jesus is not talking about Christianity. He's talking about a special spiritual place called the kingdom of God. And he says, you can't go there. You can't be in this special place where God's truth is really revealed unless you are born again spiritually. And another way of saying that is no, no man can see or know the truth of God until the Spirit of God reveals it to him. So it's something that God himself has to reveal it to him, but he only reveals it to people who are looking for it. And most people aren't looking for it because why? They're bound by the religious ideas and understanding that they have been taught. And so they're not looking outside of what they already know or believe to be true. And Jesus is saying that you won't be able to have this spiritual rebirth if you're content with your understanding of who God is. And so he says, seek and you will find. So you have to be asking God, show me God, reveal this to me. And so I think that's been that's been my greatest concern and difficulty in entering in spiritual dialogue, because most people just say, "Oh, I know what I believe," and they shut down. They refuse to like think of any other idea other than what they know. And I understand that. They believe that they're honoring God by doing that. Uh, but again, Jesus is saying that's the people that he had the most difficulty with when he was here. So
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I now understood what do you mean by born again dialogue.
what do I mean by what?
Uh, I said now I understood what do you mean by born again dialogue.
Born
Born
a
again. Yeah,
born, yeah, born again. Okay, let me answer this not from my own words, but let me answer it from Jesus's words. So what happened is in that story, and why Jesus said it, is one of these religious leaders came to Jesus in the middle of the night because he was scared. He didn't want his religious colleagues to see him talking to Jesus. So he comes to Jesus in the middle of the night and he says to Jesus, I know that you're from God. No man could do the miracles you are doing unless he was from God. And then Jesus tells him, I tell you the truth. No man can enter the kingdom of God unless he's born again. And the religious leader says to him, what must I do? Must I enter into my mother's womb and be born again? And Jesus says that um, he says, flesh gives birth to flesh, meaning that's our natural birth. He says, flesh gives birth to flesh, but spirit gives birth to spirit. And so what Jesus was clarifying with them is that this being reborn is a spiritual rebirth. And it's a rebirth not from man's wisdom or understanding, but from God's wisdom. But what God wants from us is to be asking, show me what the real truth is about who you are, what your nature is. and be humble enough to start looking or even researching it to see what if it's true, to not just believe what you're being told from a religious standpoint, but to look at it from what God might be revealing to you from a spiritual standpoint. And so it's a spiritual. And then he says this is very fascinating too. He says, the spirit is like the wind. You neither know where it comes from or where it goes. So is everyone born of the spirit. So at first it sounds like, it's a black and white thing. Either you're in the kingdom or out of the kingdom. But Jesus is saying the Spirit comes to those who are actually seeking God's understanding and wisdom. And so, yeah, that's probably the best answer, the way Jesus explains it. But I would still say a paraphrase of no man can enter the kingdom of God is, no one can see or know the truth of God until the Spirit of God reveals it to him. So,
Understood. And so that's very interesting, and we have a very amazing conversation with you, Bob.
yeah,
So since you are very my first guest, and do you have any advice for me as a new podcaster?
you mean, well, I think that you're doing it. I think that, I think it's, one, it was your preparation. And what I loved about what you said to me, Hamad, is you just said, oh, just tell me some things about yourself. And you were very relaxed about it. And then said, we're just going to talk. So I think all of those things are good because it made I felt a little bit stressed at first, but then when you took that stress off of me, by the way, you just said, oh, we're just going to talk. You can just, sort of relax and, enjoy it. I'll ask you some questions. So I think those are all very good things in how you prepare for it. And I think also your curiosity in asking the questions and bringing that out of people. So I think all of those things are special. And as long as you continue to do that, I think you'll be successful with your podcast.
Thank you so much for the compliments. And also, you and your wife is also starting a podcast. You told like
We
what?
want to, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and what's fascinating about it is my wife. Now, her real father was a Jehovah's Witness. Now, that's a different faith than let's say, the standard Christian faith. And at one time, we lived with a couple who were Mormons, and that's a different faith from the traditional Christian faith as well. And I started meeting a lot of Muslims, and she did too. So, what her desire is to start a podcast about faith and trying to understand how people come to understand and believe what they do, um, with regards to faith and religion, and just to see is there is there a dialogue to say whether something is really true or not true, or um, most people don't realize this, but one of in the very last book of the Bible, there's an admonition, there's a warning, and what the warning says is anyone who adds to these words will that they will be cursed. and and what's fascinating about that then is a lot of faiths, br- they're ushering in, new understandings, new teachings, new prophets. And so the question then, and again, that's in our book. You could always say, oh, well, that was made up. Well, if that's made up, that's fine. But it is ushering that warning right at the very last point of the book that you better not add anything to this revelation or you will be cursed. And so that's, and that's what's definitely happened, I believe, with the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons. They have additional books that they added onto it, and so she wants to see if she can seek to understand better why they come to believe that what they believe is true. Yeah, and just have a dialogue about it.
Exactly. And I hope I can bring some Muslim religious people in your podcast, inshallah.
Yes, yes, that would be great. That would be
Yeah.
good. Yeah, we do. Our faiths do have a lot of things in common, but obviously there's some major differences as well. And I understand that because I had a relationship with a imam from a mosque, and he would share with me those things why Muslims believe what they believe. Yes.
Just amazing. So, before we finish, Bob, do you have any advice for me? Any final advice that you want to tell? And one last thing, uh, what is the dark reality of real estate industry that you don't want to tell to nobody? And what the final message you give to me and our audience?
Did you say what is the practical idea of real estate in the U.S.? Is that what you asked? I'm not sure if I understood that.
I ask, like, what is the dark reality of real estate industry
Oh,
that's you don't want to tell to nobody?
oh, the dark reality. Oh, that's an interesting question. Um, I'm not sure how to answer that. I never looked at it that way, but it's a great question. Well, I would say that within the real estate industry, um, my belief is that the people, most agents aren't trained properly. So what most brokers are doing is they're just trying to get the greatest number of agents to work for their agency, and they're not really training them properly. And so I think that's the big scandal in the real estate industry is that, and I've actually experienced this. So I worked for several different brokers in my career. But then when I got on this team that I'm on right now, they have trained me in a way that I was never trained for many decades in the real estate industry. And I honestly believe our team has the gold standard for training in real estate. And again, teaching things that were never taught by any other real estate broker. So I would say that's the dark reality is that not every agent will get the same results. It's just like when you hire any professional service, it's really dependent on who your hiring is and what their knowledge is and what their training has been. And so that's what I would say. And then for my final thing, the only thing I would want to say is that, and it's a spiritual thing, Samad, you know how that's important to me. So so someone asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? What is God's greatest commandment? And Jesus responded, he responded, the greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. But then he said, and the next one is just like the first commandment, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So when we do unto others as we would have them do unto us, we are loving God with all our heart, soul, and mind. That's what God says is most important. And that would be my final message I would want to share with your audience.
Wow, beautiful. I never thought of this. Uh, so thank you so much, Bob, for this wonderful conversation. Like, it was a pleasure to learn from your journey. And thank you to all our listeners for listening to our first episode of Dil Ki Baatein. So see you next time, guys, and have a very wonderful day.
Be blessed, Muhammad, and everyone who's listening. Be blessed.
So, Allah Hafiz, Bob.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Hamad.